Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of True Horror Stories. Tonight, we're heading deep into the Australian Outback, a place so vast and unforgiving that people can vanish without a trace, leaving behind only questions that may never be answered. The stories you're about to hear are real. They happen to real people, in real places. And they'll remind you why some parts of our world are still wild, dangerous, and completely beyond our control. Let's begin. Story 1. The Missing Photographer. In March of 2018, 28-year-old Sarah Chun was a nature photographer from Melbourne who specialized in capturing the raw beauty of Australia's remote wilderness. She had been planning a solo expedition to the Sturzeletsky Desert in South Australia for months. Sarah was experienced. She'd done dozens of solo trips before, always returning with stunning photos and incredible stories. Her plan was simple. Drive out to a remote section of the desert, about 4 hours from the nearest town, set up camp, and spend 5 days photographing the landscape during the golden hours of sunrise and sunset. She'd done similar trips countless times. Sarah left Melbourne on a Friday morning in her modified Toyota Land Cruiser, fully equipped with extra fuel, water for 10 days, satellite phone, GPS, and all her camera gear. She called her boyfriend Jake that evening from her first camp, about 2 hours into the desert. Everything was going perfectly, she said. The stars were incredible, and she'd already gotten some amazing shots. That was the last anyone heard from her. When Sarah didn't return the following Wednesday as planned, Jake tried calling her satellite phone. It went straight to voicemail. He waited another day, thinking maybe she'd extended her trip. But Sarah was meticulous about her schedules. She never deviated from her plans without calling. By Friday, Jake contacted the police. Search and rescue teams were deployed immediately. Using Sarah's GPS coordinates from her last known location, they began combing the vast desert landscape. What they found 3 days later would haunt the search team forever. Sarah's campsite was discovered exactly where she said she'd be. Her tent was still standing, perfectly intact. Her camera equipment was laid out neatly on a folding table, as if she'd been in the middle of organizing her shots. Her food supplies were untouched. The Land Cruiser was parked normally, keys still in the ignition. But Sarah was gone. The strangest part was what the investigators found inside her tent. Sarah's journal was open to her last entry, dated the night she'd called Jake. But there was something else written after that. A single line in handwriting that looked like hers, but was shakier, more urgent. They're not what they seem. The search teams expanded their efforts, bringing in helicopters and thermal imaging equipment. They searched for weeks, covering hundreds of square miles of desert. They found no trace of Sarah, no footprints leading away from the camp, no signs of struggle, nothing. But they did find something else that made everyone involved deeply uncomfortable. About half a mile from Sarah's campsite, searchers discovered what appeared to be an old Aboriginal sacred site, a circle of ancient stones with strange markings. The local Aboriginal elders were consulted, but they claimed they'd never seen anything like it. The stone circle wasn't on any archaeological surveys. It was as if it had appeared recently. Inside the circle, the sand was disturbed in a perfect spiral pattern, leading to a depression in the center. When excavated, the depression revealed something that made the lead investigator request immediate backup from specialized units. Buried 18 inches down was Sarah's satellite phone. It was still functional, still charged. But when they checked the call log, they found something impossible. The phone showed dozens of outgoing calls made after Sarah had disappeared. Calls made at 3 a.m., all to the same number. When they traced the number, it led to a disconnected line that had never been assigned to any telecommunications company. The investigation was quietly closed after 6 months. Sarah's family was told that she'd likely gotten lost and succumbed to the elements, despite the fact that her body was never found and she'd left behind a fully stocked camp. Jake tried to move on, but he couldn't shake one detail that the police had shared with him in confidence. Sarah's camera had taken over 200 photos during her trip. The last 47 photos, taken after her final call to Jake, showed the same thing: the view from inside her tent, looking out at the desert at night. But in each photo, there were more shapes moving in the darkness. Shapes that seemed to be getting closer to her tent with each shot. Shapes that didn't look quite human, but weren't quite anything else either. The photos were confiscated as evidence and have never been released to the public. Sarah Chen remains missing to this day. Story 2. The broken down family. The Morrison family seemed to have the perfect plan for their summer vacation in 2019. David Morrison, his wife Linda, and their twin 15-year-old daughters Emma and Sophie were driving from Perth to Alice Springs for a family reunion. It was supposed to be an adventure, seeing the real Australia, taking the scenic route through some of the most beautiful and remote country in the world. They were driving a well-maintained Range Rover, fully equipped with emergency supplies, satellite communication, and extra fuel. David had planned the route carefully, mapping out fuel stops and overnight camping spots. He'd even downloaded offline maps to his phone and GPS unit. Everything went perfectly for the first 2 days. The family stopped at Kalgoorlie, then pushed on toward the Great Victoria Desert. They were making good time, taking photos, enjoying the vast landscapes that seemed to stretch forever in every direction. On the third day, about 150 kilometers from their planned overnight stop, their Range Rover broke down. It happened suddenly. The engine just died while David was driving at highway speed. He managed to coast to the side of the remote highway, but when he tried to restart the vehicle, nothing happened. No lights, no sounds, nothing. It was as if the entire electrical system had been fried. David wasn't worried at first. They had the satellite phone, plenty of water, and they were on a marked highway. Someone would come along eventually, or they could call for help. But when David tried the satellite phone, it wouldn't connect. The device powered on normally, showed full battery, but couldn't establish a signal. That was strange. They were in an area with clear sky, no obstacles. The phone should have worked perfectly. As the hours passed, no other vehicles came down the highway. That was unusual too. Even on remote roads, you typically see a few cars or trucks per day. But the Morrison family sat by their broken-down Range Rover for 6 hours without seeing a single vehicle. As evening approached, David made the decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He decided they should walk to get help. The family locked up the Range Rover and began walking east along the highway, toward their original destination. David figured they might meet someone coming the other way, or reach a homestead or service station. They took water, some food, and the useless satellite phone, planning to walk for a few hours before making camp for the night. They never reached their destination. The next morning, a road train driver found the abandoned Range Rover. He called it in to authorities, and a search was launched immediately. The family's footprints were clearly visible in the sand beside the highway, heading east. The prints were normal for the first 2 kilometers. Then they changed. At exactly 2.3 kilometers from the vehicle, the family's footprints became erratic. Instead of walking in a straight line along the highway, the tracks showed they had suddenly turned and walked directly south, into the empty desert. The footprints suggested they were walking quickly, almost running. But here's the part that made the search and rescue coordinator request backup from the state police. The footprints showed that the family had split up. David's boot prints continued south for another kilometer before disappearing at a rocky outcrop. Linda's tracks veered southwest and vanished at the edge of a dried riverbed. The twins' footprints were the most disturbing. Emma and Sophie had apparently separated, their tracks heading in completely different directions. Emma's prints led southeast toward a cluster of dead trees, where searchers found her backpack hanging from a branch 8 feet off the ground. Sophie's tracks led straight west, deeper into the desert, but after half a kilometer, they simply stopped in the middle of flat, open ground. Not disappeared at rocks or water, just stopped, as if Sophie had been lifted into the air. The massive search effort that followed covered over 500 square kilometers. Helicopters, search dogs, thermal imaging, ground teams, everything available was deployed. They searched for 3 weeks. They never found the Morrison family. But they did find something else that made the case even stranger. At the exact spot where the family's footprints had changed from normal walking to erratic running, searchers discovered a series of much larger tracks pressed deep into the ground. The tracks were roughly humanoid, but were over 18 inches long and showed what appeared to be claws instead of toes. Whatever had made those tracks was tall, heavy, and had been following the Morrison family. The tracks were photographed and analyzed by experts, but the results were classified. The official report stated that the prints were likely made by large dingo or wild dog, despite the fact that they clearly showed characteristics no known Australian animal possessed. The case remains open, but active searching stopped after the first month. The Morrison family's relatives have hired private investigators multiple times, but no new evidence has ever been found. The stretch of highway where their Range Rover broke down has been the site of 14 other vehicle breakdowns in the 3 years since the Morrison disappearance. In every case, the breakdowns involved complete electrical failure, and in every case, satellite phones and cell phones stopped working in that exact location. Local Aboriginal elders avoid the area entirely. When asked about it, they say only that some places are meant to keep things in, and some things are meant to keep people out. The Morrison family has never been found. Story 3. The Solo Hiker's Last Message. Marcus Webb was the kind of person who found peace in solitude. The 34-year-old software engineer from Sydney had been hiking solo for over a decade, tackling some of Australia's most challenging trails. He was meticulous in his planning, experienced in wilderness survival, and had never had a serious incident in all his years of hiking. In October 2020, Marcus planned what he called his ultimate solo challenge, a 12-day trek through the remote Kimberley region in Western Australia. His route would take him through some of the most isolated and beautiful country in Australia, areas where few people ever ventured. Marcus's plan was thorough. He'd registered his route with local authorities, left detailed maps and timeline with his emergency contact, and equipped himself with a GPS tracker, satellite messenger, emergency beacon, and enough supplies for 15 days. He was prepared for everything. The first week of his hike went perfectly. Marcus sent daily check-in messages via his satellite messenger to his sister Rachel back in Sydney. His messages were typical Marcus, detailed observations about the landscape, wildlife sightings, and photos of incredible rock formations and hidden waterfalls. Day 8. Found an amazing hidden gorge today. Water is crystal clear and cold. Camped on a rock ledge with a view that would make you cry. Spirits high, weather perfect. Day 9, pushed harder today, made good time. Strange echo in this valley, every sound seems amplified. Found some interesting rock art that's not on any of my reference materials. Ancient stuff. Day 10, something weird happened today. My GPS showed I was in 3 different locations throughout the day, even though I was walking in a straight line. Device must be malfunctioning. Using compass and paper maps now. Day 11. This is where things began to change. Marcus's message that day was shorter, less detailed. Trail markers don't match my maps. Everything looks different than it should. Sticking to the plan, but navigation is getting confusing. Day 12. I think I've been walking in circles. Landmarks keep repeating. Saw the same distinctive rock formation 4 times today from different directions. That's impossible. Something is wrong here. Day 13. Marcus was now 1 day past his planned exit, but he was experienced enough to have built buffer time into his supplies. His message that day was unsettling. I'm not alone out here. Something has been following me since yesterday. Haven't seen what it is, but I can hear it moving around my camp at night. Large, deliberate footsteps. Staying alert. Day 14. The footsteps got closer last night. I think it was testing my defenses. Set up motion-activated lights around my camp. When they triggered at 3 a.m., I saw something at the edge of the light that made me pack up and start hiking in the dark. I can't explain what I saw. Day 15. Marcus was now 3 days overdue. His message was brief and panicked. It's not an animal. It's not human either. It's been hurting me, pushing me deeper into areas that aren't on any map. My satellite messenger shows I'm in 3 different locations simultaneously. That's impossible. If something happens to me, tell Rachel I love her. That was Marcus's last message. When Marcus didn't check in on day 16, Rachel immediately contacted authorities. Search and rescue teams were dispatched to his last known coordinates, but when they arrived, they found something that defied explanation. According to Marcus's GPS tracker, he was simultaneously in 4 different locations, spread across over 50 kilometers of wilderness. The device was functioning normally, uploading coordinates every hour, but it was showing him to be in multiple places at once. Search teams split up to investigate each location. What they found at each site was identical and impossible. At each GPS coordinate, searchers found evidence of Marcus's camp from the same night. Not similar camps, identical camps. Same tent setup, same arrangement of equipment, same food supplies consumed. Even the same damage to his sleeping bag where he described repairing a small tear in his day 6 message. But Marcus wasn't at any of the locations. The most disturbing discovery came at the fourth site. There, searchers found Marcus's satellite messenger, still functioning, still sending his GPS coordinates. But attached to the device was a handwritten note in Marcus's handwriting. "I understand now. This place doesn't follow the same rules. I've been here before, and I'll be here again. The thing that was following me, I think it was me. Time moves differently here. Space bends. I can see all my campsites from here. I'm watching myself set up camp over and over. If you're reading this, don't try to find me. Some loops can't be broken." Beneath the note was a photograph, apparently taken by Marcus. It showed his campsite from an elevated angle, but the image contained multiple versions of Marcus himself, setting up the same camp in slightly different ways, like a time-lapse photograph where the person moves but the exposure continues. In the background of the photo, barely visible in the shadows, was a tall figure watching all the versions of Marcus. The figure appeared human in shape, but was wrong somehow, too tall, joints bending in directions that didn't make sense. The search continued for 2 weeks, but Marcus Webb was never found. His case was eventually classified as a missing person presumed dead due to wilderness accident. But here's what the authorities didn't release to the public. Marcus's satellite messenger continued sending GPS coordinates for 6 months after his disappearance. Every day, it showed him in multiple locations simultaneously, moving through the same areas in the same patterns, as if he was hiking his planned route over and over again in some endless loop. The device finally stopped transmitting on the exact anniversary of the day he'd sent his last message. Marcus Webb remains missing, but according to unofficial reports from other hikers in the area, some people claim to have seen a lone figure hiking the same route Marcus planned, visible in the distance but never getting closer, no matter how hard they try to catch up. They say if you watch long enough, you can see the figure make camp in multiple locations at once, as if he's trapped in some kind of temporal loop, hiking the same trail for eternity. Marcus Webb's case remains officially unsolved. Story 4. The research team that vanished. Dr. Elizabeth Harrison was a respected geologist from the University of Queensland, specializing in the study of unique mineral formations in remote areas. In September 2021, she assembled a small research team for what was supposed to be a routine 3-week expedition to study unusual rock formations in the Great Sandy Desert of Western Australia. The team consisted of 4 people: Dr. Harrison herself, her graduate student James Chen, experienced field guide Aboriginal elder William Kununurra, and documentary filmmaker Sarah Martinez, who had been hired to record their findings for an educational series. The expedition was well-funded and thoroughly planned. They had satellite phones, GPS tracking, emergency beacons, a fully equipped land cruiser, and enough supplies for a month. William Kununurra had grown up in the area and knew the land better than almost anyone alive. Their destination was a recently discovered rock formation that satellite imagery had revealed deep in the desert, a perfectly circular arrangement of stone pillars that appeared to be natural, but showed geometric precision that seemed almost artificial. Dr. Harrison believed it might be evidence of a unique geological process that could reshape understanding of how certain rock formations developed. The team departed from their base in Port Hedland on a Tuesday morning, planning to reach the formation by Thursday and spend 2 weeks conducting detailed surveys and documentation. They reached their destination exactly on schedule. Their first few days were productive and routine. Dr. Harrison sent regular updates via satellite phone to her department head, Professor Mitchell, describing the formation as unlike anything I've seen in 20 years of geological research. According to her reports, the stone pillars were arranged in 3 concentric circles, each ring containing exactly 13 pillars. The stones were made of a type of rock that shouldn't exist in that area, a mineral composition that suggested they had formed under pressure and temperature conditions impossible in the Australian desert. But there was something else about the formation that Dr. Harrison found troubling, though she couldn't quite articulate what it was. In her Day 5 report, she mentioned that her team was experiencing unusual psychological effects, difficulty sleeping, vivid dreams, and a persistent sense that they were being watched. Day 6. The formation is more complex than initially thought. Ground-penetrating radar shows extensive underground chambers. James discovered markings on the stones that appear artificial, but erosion patterns suggest they're incredibly old. William has become reluctant to approach the inner circle. Says his grandfather warned him about places like this. Day 8. Something is affecting our equipment. Compass readings are inconsistent within the formation. GPS shows our position fluctuating by several kilometers throughout the day, even though we haven't moved. Sarah's cameras are malfunctioning, digital files become corrupted, film is developing with strange distortions. Day 10. Sleep deprivation is becoming a problem. Every night, we hear sounds coming from the formation, like stone grinding against stone, but in rhythmic patterns. Almost like machinery. James recorded it, but playback shows only silence. This morning we found that our campsite had been moved 200 meters from where we set it up. All four of us remember setting up in a different location. Day 12. Dr. Harrison's report was fragmented and difficult to understand. The stones, they're not staying in the same positions. I've been mapping them carefully, and the configuration changes between observations. William says we need to leave immediately. Says this place is singing the wrong songs. I think he's right, but we need more data. The underground chambers are much more extensive than we thought. They seem to extend for kilometers. Day 14. We tried to leave yesterday, but something is wrong with our navigation. Every route we take leads us back to the formation. William attempted to guide us out using traditional navigation methods, but even he seems confused. Our GPS shows us driving in straight lines away from the site, but we keep ending up back where we started. It's as if the desert is folded here. That was Dr. Harrison's last report. When the team failed to check in on day 15, Professor Mitchell immediately contacted authorities. A search and rescue operation was launched, using the team's last known GPS coordinates to guide the rescue helicopters. What the searchers found defied every expectation. The team's Land Cruiser was located exactly where it should be, based on their final GPS position. The vehicle was parked normally, all supplies intact, equipment undisturbed. The team's camp was set up nearby, looking as if they had just stepped away for a few minutes. But the research team was nowhere to be found. The stone formation that had been the focus of their study was there, exactly as described in Dr. Harrison's reports. 3 concentric circles, 13 pillars in each ring, made of stone that had no business existing in that location. But when the searchers tried to examine the formation more closely, they encountered the same problems the research team had described. GPS readings became erratic within 50 meters of the stones. Compass needles spun wildly. Digital cameras malfunctioned, and even traditional film cameras produced distorted images. Most unsettling of all, the searchers discovered that they kept losing track of time within the formation. Multiple rescue team members reported entering the stone circles to search for the missing team, only to find that hours had passed while they felt they had been inside for minutes. The search team leader made the decision to establish their base camp well away from the formation and limit exposure time for his personnel. On the 3rd day of searching, they made a discovery that would haunt everyone involved. Hidden in a crevice beneath one of the outer stones, they found Dr. Harrison's research journal. The final entries were written in handwriting that became increasingly erratic and difficult to read. Day 16. We didn't leave. We couldn't leave. Every time we try to walk away from this place, we end up walking toward it. William says the formation is a trap, designed by something that understands how space and time work better than we do. Day 17. James tried to climb the tallest pillar to get better GPS reception. He reached the top, but when we looked up, there were 4 different versions of him climbing at different speeds. He came back down, but he was different. Older. Said he'd been up there for weeks, watching us set up camp over and over. Day 18. Sarah's footage is showing things that haven't happened yet. Her camera recorded us breaking camp and leaving, but we haven't done that. In the video, we looked terrified. Something was chasing us, but we can't see what. Day 19. I understand now. This isn't a natural formation. It's a mechanism. A trap. We triggered it by studying it, and now we're part of it. William was right. His people knew about places like this. Places that catch people and keep them, using them somehow. Day 20. If someone finds this journal, don't try to rescue us. Don't study the formation. Don't let anyone else come here. Some discoveries are too dangerous to make. We're still here, but we're not us anymore. We're part of whatever this place is designed to do. The stones sing at night. They're singing with our voices now. The search operation was called off after 1 week. Too many searchers were reporting disorientation, missing time, and psychological disturbances after exposure to the formation. The site was quietly classified as hazardous and removed from all public geological surveys. Official records state that Dr. Harrison's team died in a vehicle accident, despite the fact that their Land Cruiser was found in perfect condition. But according to unofficial reports, the stone formation continues to appear in satellite imagery, though its configuration seems to change between observations. Some images show the original 3 circles of 13 stones each. Others show different arrangements, sometimes more circles, sometimes fewer stones, as if the formation is somehow alive and shifting. Local Aboriginal communities have placed a traditional restriction on the area, warning that it's a place where the dream time and the present world overlap in dangerous ways. Dr. Elizabeth Harrison, James Chen, William Kunanara, and Sarah Martinez are officially listed as deceased, their bodies never recovered. But satellite imagery taken exactly 1 year after their disappearance showed something that was quickly classified and removed from public access. For human figures standing motionless within the stone formation, visible from space, their shadows stretching in directions that didn't match the sun's position. The figures have appeared in subsequent satellite passes, always in different positions within the formation, but always there. Some things are too dangerous to study. Some places are meant to remain unexplored. The research team remains missing, but they may not be gone. They may simply be part of something larger now, something we're not meant to understand. These 4 stories represent just a fraction of the unexplained disappearances that occur in Australia's remote wilderness every year. The outback is vast, unforgiving, and filled with dangers we may never fully comprehend. Each of these cases remains officially unsolved. The families of the missing continue to search for answers, but the harsh reality is that some answers may be too terrible to discover. The Australian wilderness has kept its secrets for millions of years. It has witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, seen things that exist beyond our understanding of reality. And sometimes, it decides to keep the people who venture too far into its depths. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.